This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, this is the January 10th, 2022 meeting of the Town of Groton Conservation Commission. My name is Bruce Lofgren. I'm on staff. The chair of the meeting is Larry Dunn. The public, if anyone is attendance, may be able to speak during the public communications portion of the agenda. And you can do so by raising your virtual hand, and the chairman will call on each person individually to speak. With that, Mr. Chairman, you can take the roll and start the meeting.
All right, Chairman Larry Dunn. We'll go on my screen. Tom?
Tom Olson, member.
Michelle?
Michelle Fitzpatrick, secretary.
Karen?
Karen Scapino, member.
Ann?
Ann Schmidt, member.
Kristen?
Kristen Distante, member.
And Brett.
Ray Rafferty, vice chair.
All right, the first order of business is approval minutes from December 6th. And let's see. Why do I think I thought I had, oh, I did have, I only had one comment. Item 4.1 on the South Road open spaces stewardship. I guess technically I did the update and published it out there, but I guess it doesn't matter. I'm looking, was there anything else? Did anyone else have any comments or corrections? I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So
I move we approve the minutes.
December 6th, second.
second,
And all in favor, please raise your hand. That's Ann that seconded it. So
I wasn't there. I'll abstain.
I'll abstain. All right. So it's one abstention. And I guess technically, getting a little ahead, technically, Karen has submitted her resignation, which was effective actually December 31st because she was a renewal. So I was going to thank her for her service, and she's agreed to attend the meetings and contribute, where she can as we go forward, but not as a full voting member. So for the balance of this meeting, we only have the six members that would be voting as we go forward. Thank you, Karen. Anything you'd like to say to the team here?
Just that I admire each and every one of you and the outstanding job and contributions you make to Groton. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Next item on the agenda is public communications. And I know we did have, we have 4 attendees out there. And there has one with their hand raised, which would be Ms. Raisbeck.
You're on mute, Liz.
Unmute.
That's better. Now we can hear you.
Okay.
Now, yep.
And
Hi.
see you.
Good to see you. Hello, everybody. This evening, I want to talk about our plastics ordinance, and my colleague on Groton Conservation Advocates is going to join me in comments. Do I need to say my address? Like the count, I'm rusty with the Conservation Commission. I haven't been here for a while. So, well, I'll plunge forth. So we, it's been 2 years now since we passed a plastics ban in Groton, which was one of the most forward-looking in the state, and A lot of gratitude goes to the Conservation Commission for the role they played in that. That was January 2020. And I see I have an error in my statement. I'll have to fix that in the date. So there are two things that we think that we would like to enlist the Conservation Commission's help with in tweaking our ordinance. One is the fact that big companies like Walmart and CVS are getting around the ordinance by providing heftier bags at our required limit, which is 4 mils. And Chris is going to talk to you about the need for increasing our mill level to 12 mils, which a number of towns have done. And I sent you a list of towns that have mill requirements. And the other issue is we would like to raise again the a possible fee on paper bags. It's really the right thing to do. Big Y has a fee on paper bags, but we haven't done a survey to see if any small businesses do. We think probably not. The studies that have been done have shown that putting a fee on paper bags, especially for groceries, has a significant impact on reducing the amount of waste in the paper waste stream. And it's a way that Groton could reduce our waste stream and contribute to climate change by reducing the number of trees that get cut down to produce paper bags. And it's in my comments, I list some other things that I won't get into now. I have in my statement 10 towns have 10-cent fees on paper bags. Actually, it's 11 towns. You can look at the list and see who they are. We're still in the process of researching this issue and making the best case for it. And we'll be back to you on that. We wanted to put a shot across your bow and ask you to join with us in this effort. That's it for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think what we're going to do is we have a section coming up on objectives for 2022. And we'll tee this up. I added it to the list of potential focus items, and we'll take that up at that time, section 4.2. Is there any other of the attendees out there that want to? Oh, I see another hand raised. Bruce?
Yeah, we have Chris Kuhn, I'm assuming. And Eugenia too. Would you like them one at a time, or?
Yeah, I wanted to, well, assuming it's different topics, one at a time.
Hello.
Hello.
So my name is Chris Kuhn. I'm a member of the steering committee of GCA. And if it's okay with you, I would like to take just a moment to address the issue of the heavier plastic bags. I would like to, first of all, say, yes, again, how much we appreciate the major role that the Conservation Commission played in the successful passage of our ordinance, and that locally at Walmart and and CVS, the workaround is provision of these heavier weight bags that are defined as reusable and that are advertising themselves as such. And I don't know if you all have seen these bags, if there's sufficient light for me to show you that how heavy they are, but they do label themselves as hand washable, sustainable, reuse 125 times, and also as recyclable if clean and dry. They are category 4 plastic, which is polyethylene, which is the same type of plastic that is used to make 6-pack rings. And there is no market for that particular category of polyethylene. The question arises as to whether Walmart may collect these recyclable bags and recycle them, range for recycling of this material in bulk, but that's very unclear. I did speak with Dave Aldrich, who is the executive director of SCARA, our solid waste management manager. And he said there is no market for it and it would simply be burned as far as anything that they collect. There is, the question arises, well, why 12 mil? And the reason for that is that it appears that up to 10 mil bags can be mass produced in China and provided at a very inexpensive rate for these various businesses that want to provide them. 12 mil would require a total refashioning of their manufacturing processes, and so was felt to be an unlikely prospect, and therefore the numerous of the towns across the state have adopted 12 mil. There are 11 locales that I'm aware of that specify 12 mil, and as many as 6 or 7 that are less than 12 mil or the thickness of which we don't know. And there's some footwork that we have to do to be back in touch with you and let you know what their experience has been.
All right, thank you. Eugenia has her hand up.
Now can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Not
Nope.
now.
No, not now. Yeah, we did.
Okay, there I am, E.
Yes.
All right. So good evening, everyone. My name is Eugenia Villagra, and on behalf of GCA, I'm going to talk about a new open space percentage goal for Groton, 30% by 2030. Currently, some in the town of Groton, including town councilors, are thinking that at 21%, Groton has enough open space, the implication being that whatever open space remains should be developed to grow the tax base to keep taxes lower. I think over the years, Larry and the Conservation Commission have been able to challenge that assumption, but we have a new town council and more work to do. This 21% figure for Groton is based on the state goal established back in 1998. Since then, scientists around the world have proposed that to save our planet from the catastrophic effects of climate change, we must devote half the surface of Earth to nature and do so quickly to preserve the biodiversity of our planet and save ourselves. What can we do here in Groton? Here is what the Conservation Commission said in their open space plan, quote, "While Groton's open space percentage closely matches the overall statewide goal, supporting an enhanced quality of life here in Groton in order to offset overdevelopment and excess urbanization in other Connecticut towns, we strongly recommend higher percentages than the state goal." But I couldn't find any recommendation in the open space plan as to what that state goal would be. And what we're suggesting is that we start with a clearly defined goal of 30% by 2030. 30 by 30 is a worldwide initiative that calls for governments to designate 30% of Earth's land as protected by 2030. The 30% target was first proposed in a 2019 article in Science titled "A Global Deal for Nature." It called for expanded nature conservation efforts to mitigate climate change. In January 2021, the Biden administration, supported by the Natural Resource Defense Council, embraced the 30 by 30 measure and recommended it be the goal for the whole United States. Is this goal realistic for Groton? Definitely. There is a lot of undeveloped land available in Groton, approximately 1,786 acres available for conservation north of the Gunjewamp area alone. And there's also the land that is already protected, including Whittle's open space, the Burroughs property, and Wolfbrook's 161 acres that could help Groton get up to 30%. We hope that the Conservation Commission will consider supporting the 30 by 30 goal. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. And I think everyone, I don't know if Mary Ellen wants to speak, or I don't see her hand raised, so we will.
Could I say one more thing? One sentence.
One sentence, that's it.
One sentence, which I just wanted to alert you that Groton Conservation Advocates is getting into the data center issue. We had nothing to say tonight, but we'll be back. That's it.
All right. Yeah, I am going to talk. That is one of the items on our agenda we'll talk to later. All right. With that, I will bring a close to public communications. We will get back to both those topics in a later section of the agenda. Next on the agenda is election of officers for 2022. I think how we do this is open it up for proposals or recommendations for there's 3 offices. Kristen, yes, you're raising your hand. You're on mute.
You're on mute. Okay, I nominate the same slate of officers that we already have.
I second it.
That I'll be more explicit. That's Larry Dunn as chair, Ray Rafferty as vice chair, and Michelle Fitzpatrick as secretary. And there was a second. I should ask those named, are you willing to serve in that capacity, or those capacities? Ray?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
All right.
Larry?
Okay.
Better.
Are there any other proposed candidates for those positions? Feel like a going once, going twice. All right, so I guess we still have to have a formal vote. I can't just do this by acclamation, can I? All right, so let's have a vote on the slate of officers as presented. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's unanimous. There's only 6. Unfortunately, Kieran doesn't get the voting this time around. Well, that was quick. The next topic does relate to some of the ones that were raised. It's the 2021 annual report and 2022 objectives. As the commission so kindly asked Tom Olson to take a whack at an annual report. So Tom took a whack at it. I kind of looked at it. And did that go out? I'm sitting here. I have
Page
it.
7.
All right, so let me also bring it up here so I can edit it if there's any changes. Let me share. So I think you made me a co-host, so I'll share screen. All right, so the intent, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so the intent here was to provide a introduction to the new town council members in effect. It is one of the items that's listed as our responsibilities, although we haven't kind of done it in the past. And so this is about, well, 1 page long. There was a couple of editorial comments that Karen had put in that I've got here in red. My major comment was that I was going to recommend adding in there our 2022 objectives for the commission as part of this document. So I think the first thing is to look at what's written, which is a historical perspective, ask for changes, edits, etc. And then I'll ask the question on adding the 2020 objectives, which then mean we have to have a discussion on those objectives. All right, since this was out there in the agenda, are there comments, oops, as I have it up here, are there any comments or edits that anyone would like to raise on the document as shown? Boy, everybody wants to watch the football game tonight.
Well, you and Tom did a great job in putting this together.
Tom did 95% of the work. Maybe 100%, I don't know.
The red on this, what you're seeing right now is Larry's contribution.
No, that was actually Karen's contribution.
Or Karen's, or
oops, damn. My screen went black. I hope yours didn't.
no.
Okay. So it's very brief. It kind of hits the highlights and it provides, I guess the intent of this, the original intent was to provide a mechanism for a discussion with the town council as appropriate. So given that, let me move along to the second point that I made of adding, is there a agreement or a comment to add 2022 objectives to this document? Any discussion on that?
That sounds like a good idea. Sorry.
Oh, so I'm kind of leaning the other way in that it's a report. Don't we have our objectives stated elsewhere?
Well, the conservation plan has kind of the strategy. And then we have the stewardship plans. And then we have the spreadsheets, which have a lot of detailed specific line items, for specific stewardship plans, et cetera. In terms of the points of emphasis, and those are, like, let's say the strategy items to me are things that I won't say go on in perpetuity, but they're ongoing. So it's like, what's the focus for 2022? Maybe I should share with you, I took a whack at some thoughts. Hold on, let me bring up some examples to show you what I was thinking of.
As Larry's doing that, just let me give you a little background on what I did on the research for putting this format together. Is I looked at I found 3 other towns that have posted Conservation Commission reports. A couple of 2 towns have, they have actually an annual report committee that actually consolidates the reports from each of the actual commissions and agencies and departments. And they end up with a 150-page book that is issued in conjunction with the end of their individual fiscal year. So in July, they would issue this annual report for the town. And it would basically supplement the approved budget that you typically see at that time. One other town did it on the annual basis, but in all cases they were 1 page long, and they did not include anything. They were just a report of what happened this past year, and none of them, if they had anything, it would have been a 1 or 2 line statement as far as on what their plans are. But most of them have a continuing effort that they have a responsibility for, whether it be care of an open space park or something like that. That's the only thing that we would be doing something to improvements to that one particular area. But there wasn't an overarching laundry list of stuff, just to put things in perspective. Thank you.
All right. Other comments? I think, Michelle, you started to say something.
Oh, yeah, I started to say it's not a bad idea, and I guess I'm kind of on the fence, because in some ways, yeah, let them know what we're thinking, but on the other hand, if then we don't do the stuff we say we're gonna do, people might ask questions, so it may be better off to not share our plans in that way, and just, if we talk to them, we can tell them that, but to not have it on paper.
All right. Other feedback?
This is Bray. I agree with Michelle. I think that if we have a working list of, for ourselves in-house going forward, that's great. But if something all of a sudden comes up and takes up multiple meetings of our time, it doesn't allow us to go back to some of the other things that were on the list. This gives us that flexibility. My understanding on this is initially when we were doing this was going to be in an annual report of what have we accomplished, what did we work on last year, and without necessarily saying, stay tuned, this is what we're going to be doing in the future. I like the idea of just submitting the annual report, letting it go, and if there are questions, we can address them as they come. But this is our own working in-house list, is my support the way Michelle was talking.
All right. Anne, any comments?
I kind of agree that we need to be flexible. We certainly could communicate objectives verbally, or even, it'll be in our meeting minutes anyway.
All right. Kristen?
Yeah, no, that was my initial feeling, is that, if you start to have this whole list out here of what we're going to do, and then, you never know exactly, something may take off, as people have said, and then saying, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. It just could be, it could just cause us, we have our spreadsheets, we have our short-term, long-term objectives. That's public, that's a matter of public record. So I think a report should be just like, yeah, this is what we accomplished in this year. So I would lean against putting that out there as far as our 2022 objectives, because I think if anything, it's constraining.
All right. Well, we've never been constrained in the past, but the consensus is, in terms of the question on the table for the 2021 annual report, is to limit it to results of 2021. So be it. Therefore, what I would look for is, let me go back to this again. All right, is a motion that then submits this annual report with the edits as shown on the screen to the town council with a, I guess, not a request, or an offer that the commission would be happy to come forward and, review this and provide more details as they desire. So let me throw that out there. Tom?
I don't know about going to the town council. I think we got to remember that we report to the town manager. We should be submitting this to the town manager. If he feels that there's anything that, and he can just, and we make a recommendation that he address the concern to the town council if they want to go forward. But I think we should be working through the town manager rather than let him make the determination rather than us, as far as going to council.
Kristen?
Yeah, I agree with Tom in that, the town council have a lot coming at them, and rather than inundate them with stuff that this is kind of a done deal, let's save their attention for when we really want it. for, purposes of advancing something that we're trying to advance rather than kind of bogging them down with just more stuff.
Other comments? All right, so there's not a motion on the floor. So would someone want to put a motion on the floor?
I move that we forward the proposed and corrected Town of Groton Conservation Commission annual report for 2021 to the town manager.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, make that unanimous, and I guess I will take that action. As always with Bruce, as our loyal staff support to get that to our town manager. Now, having said that, I still want to, as part of the agenda, talk about, let me close this down. Let me go back to share. I had some thoughts. Oops. Is that the right one? Yeah. So I looked at all the stuff we had on our plate. These kind of came up, and I guess I wanted to have a little bit of a discussion that says, is there some major topic that was missed? These aren't priority ordered, by the way, which is a whole different discussion. As a result of the input that we got from the public, I did add, a couple of items here in terms of expanding plastic ordinance, et cetera. So I'd kind of like to throw out any comments, or, well, first of all, is there any major topic that you think is not on here, Kristen?
Well, still continuing to reach out to the pollinator pathway community, because that has kind of been backburnered for a while, but I'd still like to try and get the town of Groton into that now that we have the new town council. Maybe a good year, and hopefully the pandemic will end at some point. A good year to be getting officially involved with that program.
All right, other,
It's pollinate or OR, right? Pollinator?
what'd they do? Pollinate.
Pollination.
Yes, pollinator pathway is the
Okay.
specific group, but we've had there's been some communication outreach, and then, meetings canceled, and so it hasn't really moved forward, but it
It's been a
shouldn't be
tough-
very
yeah.
hard to
It's been
get to move
tough 2
forward.
years, yeah, on
Yeah.
some funds to get stuff done. Bray, you had your hand up?
Yes. My thought is to add that we start to look at the links with our present open spaces to the nearby adjoining open spaces, starting to look at moving ahead of what parcels might be attractive to try to get to start doing some linkages.
So that's Greenway or green belt execution, that kind of a.
Yes.
So I think we got stuff going on, Tom, on that one, right?
Well, there's two things going on here. One is, as far as is the greenways, and just give you a quick update on that since we're talking about it, is that the Trails Task Force approved in December, forwarding having the Mark Berry forward on for a referral to the town council, the applications for both the Tri-Town Trail and the Crosstown Greenways. That referral, I reviewed it today. Mark's submitting it, and it's in that process for final town approval. Likewise, just for information, the Conservation Commission up in Ledyard is doing the same thing with the Tri-Town, because the Tri-Town goes through their, they're in the same referral process right now with theirs. And I verified, and I've had communications with the state DEP on the Greenway applications, and they have a rolling process. And their next planned event where they would announce these things is in June of 22, but that's still up in the air because of COVID. So that's Greenway Support. This follow-on is what I think Bray is talking to is the Green Belt Support, which would be a separate topic, which is how do we better plan and put parcels together to identify those that would support a better establishment of a true green belt as defined in our POCD.
All right.
Larry, I have a question.
Yep.
Were the original objectives that you had written down above and beyond what's in section 7 of the open space plan? Because I feel like
a lot of the stuff is buried in there.
Right. So I
Yeah,
was
if-
just wondering if we wanted to review that and see what we want to do, because you know, a few of these, there are things on this list that are not in the
Well, some stuff
objective.
comes- Yeah, some stuff that comes up that's new from those objectives. So
Right.
It is on the agenda, matter of fact, section 7, it's down, is our next major topic to go through that. This was more of a, rather than, because those are specific actions versus general statements. But we
Well,
do have to resolve, yeah,
Greenbelt connectivities in there.
that's in there. as specific
Greenway
actions.
support. I think even the pollinator pathway, didn't you have that in
Yep.
there?
That is in there as
Wow.
well. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I agree that there is, you know, it should be. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
those list of items should support our objectives. So to consider this a test that says, is that the case? And if there's things not in there, then we'd have to add actions. If we want to do some prioritization, because I was going to get the prioritizations next. But again, it's a question of, we only have so many cycles as a commission.
Right.
And, you know, I want to take a whack at prioritization and emphasis. I mean, you just heard a couple of new things pop up, even though we played with, how do we, you know, what's the percentages? We finally resolved, and I'll get to that in a second, because that's coming up next on the open space app. But the documentation, the categorization, but then it's like, what's our goal? So that's a separate item. So I'm looking for things that may be additive, things that are already there. This then provides us, a form of prioritization. So is there anything missing that you think is here? If it's obviously in our objectives document, it's not missing, but just at this level. And then my next question would be, should I take something off this? I'm trying to force a prioritization, guys, by stepwise refinement here. So, I think we
I
went
feel
through.
like-
Yep.
Sorry. I feel like we need to combine it with section 7 somehow, because I mean, I don't recall exactly what all the objectives were there and what the commitments were.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, Tom?
Well, I guess this is kind of a follow on to what Ann's saying, is that when I go see execute stewardship plans, there's a lot there. Whereas I go take a look at some of these other ones, it's a very focused thing that just is an agenda item on, for our discussions here as far as what we can do. Because the execute stewardship plans really has a lot to it. We've issued 17 plans over this past year. And with every one of those there's a component of developing a core group of volunteers in each of those different areas for those plans are, and then having them go off and execute stuff. And part of that, when we go back and look at our strategy, how we were doing that, we had a whole education program to get those volunteers together. So there's a lot there that's put in that one statement. And so I don't know if when you're saying objectives, are you looking to kind of group things together in general areas, or to get down to the level of detail of the execution plan that Ann was asking about, which is really being tracked in your section 7 action item tracking plan?
Yeah, it's the former. It's kind of bring it up a little bit so that we can kind of talk about it, because I agree with you. We made we spent a lot of time in 2021 creating stewardship plans. And so the thought always was in 2022, we would look how to execute all those actions in there, right? Which then would devolve to, shouldn't devolve is the wrong way. There's another whole action list that Michelle was the steward of, if you use, let me use that expression. So all those actions from those stewardship plans are in that one document, which I'll, again, throw up on the screen a little later. So yeah, that as a general statement, my view is that should be one of our major objectives of 2022. Greenway, Greenbelt support, that's kind of another generic, of which there's a lot of details, to Ann's point, but there are details on that in the section 7 document. This is kind of a one-off, right? This is a one-off. Sustainability and composting is new, although composting is kind of in there. Composting is in there, but this is a very specific, the SCARA pilot program that we talked about last month. As they go forward with that action, in terms of our support of that with the town, these two came up as new items. I would call them new items. NER execution support, that one was basically approved. And I'm not sure there's a lot that we would need to do, but that's one, maybe, to kind of look at it, that's kind of new. Is there something that we can extract? And I suspect that's a longer range item. So a lot of these were new ones. And I guess here's the old ones, right? And then kind of here were the new ones, right? As I was kind of looking at this. So Kristen?
I think Michelle was first.
Huh?
But
Doesn't
anyway.
matter. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I don't see the plastic stuff as being at all new, because that's something we've been involved with and planning to revisit. And also I think the composting stuff, we had Anthony in what's his name? David, and we had him in 3 years ago talking about this stuff. So this seems to me like it's all ongoing. I don't see any of it as really new. It seems like continuing.
Michelle?
Yeah, okay, hi, this is Michelle. Yeah. The more I think about, look at this, and I'm kind of leaning towards where I was hearing Tom, at least he prompted this. I mean, execute stewardship plans, because now we're going to try to execute all the plans. And we really have just a piece that we're going to try to do in 2022. So I'm wondering if we don't want to be a little bit more specific about what is the objective for just this year? Like what, and that's for all these are all really general, but what are we actually trying to accomplish?
No, I agree.
We're
not going to do
this
17
year.
plans. Yeah, we're not going to do 17 plans.
What do we mean by parcel protection? What's the objective we're trying to accomplish in parcel protection, right? Do we want to be a little bit more specific about, when we report on this next year, this time?
Oh, you went to mute, Michelle.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
So I'm saying, I don't know how specific we need to be, but it seems like having an objective that broad doesn't really help us to accomplish it.
Okay. Well, let me back up a little bit. You agree that we need to have a focus on the top objectives for 2022?
Well, yeah, I think we have something in all those areas that we want to try to do. It's just a matter of, making it a little bit more definitive about what makes sense that we could accomplish in the next year.
Right.
Just to follow up with Michelle, instead of execute selected stewardship plans, it might be just to expand stewardship plans. What would be the next step to do with these? And as Tom said, there's a wealth of directions to go in and work to be done. And we're certainly not going to get to all of them in any great detail at all in the coming year. Because as we move forward, how do we want to move forward and who are we moving forward with to support? How is this coming together? So it's more of working on the stewardship plans rather than execute necessarily, which seems to be very finite and you have to do it.
All right, well, let me try a little different proposition here. What if we established tonight a subcommittee that would focus on two things? You know, what are the 2022 priority objectives, and have the cross-reference to section 7, and I'm not sure what we call the stewardship plan sections, but probably section 7 is probably good enough. And make sure that there's correlation between those two, and talk about this with more specificity at our next meeting. Does that make more sense?
Yes.
Which then says, who would like to be on the subcommittee? Yes, Tom.
Well, it sounds like to some degree you're just kicking the can down the road with that approach. One of the things that I see here is you're setting up objectives here, but what are you really trying to do? Okay, are you trying to prioritize our limited amount of time and hours that we can give to the Conservation Commission? Because I think that's really what you're really trying to do here.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
And so you really need to do that tonight and not kick the can down the road for months. Okay, because if we're just trying to massage a list here, we're not going in the right direction. Thank you.
Yes, Kristen.
I think the priorities might vary from member to member. I think some members might have more enthusiasm for some issues and others more enthusiasm for other issues. So I don't know how a subcommittee defines what the most important priorities are. I just think maybe we should go in the directions of interest with whoever has those same interests and see how we get, you know.
Okay, well, then that brings up an alternate approach that says for these items, somebody want to put their name there as a sponsor? Because we kind of have sponsors in the section 7 area. And if there's not a sponsor, then probably it ain't going to get done.
Well, I'm still interested in the pollinator pathways. I'm still interested in plastic, and I'm still interested in the composting and the just the industrial composting issue in the community. But I think the composting in particular is a much longer term project, but I think we need to be following the thread right now.
Okay.
So I'm interested mostly in those three.
And this is Olson, as far as the ones, you know, I've already been involved in the parcel protection.
I was gonna put you down.
Right. Then I'm doing the Greenway stuff, and I've done the nurse stuff. And I'll take a bite as far as in the aligning percentages. I have a vision on where that should be going.
All right.
You could put me with the stewardship plans.
I've already started here. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's see. There we go. Okay. We still have members.
And we have
But
two
what-
topics left.
One
Fred?
person's name on it doesn't mean that person's working alone. It just means
No,
that
no, no,
person's
that's
be
it's
maintaining the
sponsored.
thread, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
the lead.
yeah,
Mhm.
just the lead.
Well, if you have to put your names down, I'll go with the Greenbelt Support with Tom. Certain last one, the near execution support, I'll help them out with that.
Was that this one?
No,
Yep.
it's next one. No, at the last one, all on the list.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh,
That makes sense, actually.
And, oh, I was, besides the Greenway support, also the Greenbelt support. So you can put me on there.
All right.
But I think some of these others, it's, sustainability support. I think all of us have interest in that, but we come at it with, from our own particular skill sets and people that we know, that all bubbles up into a team approach to it. So I'm not necessarily think that sustainability support needs a champion at this point.
Well, yeah, on this one, it's new in the town. It's like, what do we do as a commission in general? So it's kind of it is a new thing. And I suspect we're gonna have to figure out how to work with that sustainability manager whenever they get one. Tom?
Right.
Yeah, that was my question is, where they, do you have any update as far as on, or does Bruce happen to know what the status of that hiring process is? Because that's really gonna drive, yeah, I could see where we would have to have, some kind of, tie-in with him.
But the last I heard on sustainability manager position, I think we're gonna start advertising in March. That's what I heard.
All right, so I would like to then, so I appreciate everybody doing it. So as the sponsor, I would ask that one of the things you do prior to our next meeting is to go through section 7, which has, excuse me, a lot of these details in there. And if these items aren't explicit in that document, please add it. All right, so that we have that composite list. All right, so that would give us a way of tracking that. And we'll work through that as we, I guess we'll get to section 7 in a little bit, because I did want to show you where we were at on that. All right, well, that's progress. I'm okay with that. So does anyone want to continue on that, or I'll go on to the next topic?
Next topic.
Next topic, okay. Conservation website. So I did provide the December update for the commission website. Basically, it was 3 items. Added the plans that we approved in December. And as Tom mentioned, there's now 17 plans out there. Provided an updated index, and I provided an updated section 7 that's out there if anyone wants to get the the latest section. And did we is that in the agenda, Bruce? I forget. Did we publish that?
Yeah, I can't remember either. I think we did.
I'm just looking here. I don't see it. Well, it is out there and it's published on the website. Then I'm gonna get to the status on 4.5. Since we're on webs stuff, last meeting that there was I asked for people's feedback on the app. I took that feedback, consolidated it, put it into IT. They worked on the items they could do. Some of them weren't able to be done because it's related to the version of the code that's there. For example, truncating the accuracy level, which was one of my comments. The thing that wasn't there was what I did about definitions, or in the about section or tab. Let me stop there. Let me share this and bring this up. So the thought was that people would not necessarily understand what the hell we're talking about when you look at the table and you see, in the map section, you'll see these kinds of things, all right? What do we mean by manage open space or dedicated or active, passive on the table? What's active, passive, et cetera? So I took a whack at it. Tom then corrected me, as he's wont to do. And I then kind of added this introduction in terms of making this available to a broader audience, and that's what we want to talk about. But the first thing is, before we get to that, is there any comments? I keep forgetting what was out there and what was not out there. I don't think that was out there. So does anyone have any additional comments or clarifications on the definitions that would go into the About tab on the application? Kristen?
Well, I'm just communicating from GCA, who I met with regarding plastics and a couple things, but Eugenia in particular was concerned that there seems to be different definitions of open space at the Conservation Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I think their concern is, what's sort of wild natural open space versus recreational open space, and that there should be some distinction. So maybe, I don't know if this is the time before it all goes into this document. The document can be edited later, right? But I mean, I think there's some.
Careful. This relates to the specific application and categorization that are in the app. So there's a relationship.
Right.
So we're not going to be, if we're talking about adding another category or making a modification, that's a different discussion.
Right. Okay.
As developed, because you can always change and have an update to the app with an associated update to the definition. But the intent was, for the app as developed, these are the definitions that go along with it. Then if we find out, oh, gee, I don't understand it, we want something different. I think there's 13 categories. Gee, we want a 14th category. Those could be future items, but I don't want to confuse definitions that are theoretical, which might be more in the plan, versus what the app represents, because each parcel is categorized against one of these 13 line items.
Okay.
Right?
Just so that's out there.
Yep. I'm sorry, Tom?
Just a little follow-up is that this inventory is based on the current town POCD and the definitions that are in these. What you're reading right here is, last time I put the quotes as far as POCD. Those are the classifications and categorizations, and that's the inventory that we're matching. And then that ends up in three major groupings, and then those subgroupings are the ownership. Is it the state? Is it the town? Is it the city? Is it a private entity? And that's how you blow this thing up right up to 12 right there. And then there's a 13, then you can add in PA 490 to get you to the 13th category. So that, we're not dealing with, this is not an issue of definition. These are we're inventorying the town to the POCD, which is approved by the town council back a number of years ago, and that's still in effect today. And that's what drives everything.
What is the map that you keep referring to?
The map is the first tab in the application.
And that's the town map with all the individual parcels that show identification in which of these groupings. There's a color coded to each space if it has a color, and it's a dedicated open space that's owned by the state. It's a different color if it's owned by the town. It's a different color if it's owned by the a private entity. And you can look at that. You can click on it and find out and get the information that's tied to that individual parcel. That's the map, and these are the definitions so that you understand what you're looking at.
Yep. That's to refresh everybody. This is the map. Boom. These are the definitions. So there's actually I think 14 now, when I think about it. Individual not protected or PA 490, it says 12 selected.
Yep.
Then the table has all the detailed data. The stats we went through and provided breakdowns. And you know, it kind of pops up when you're there, but you can see the categories. And then the about, there's nothing there, right? So this is like, what do you mean by a category? What do you mean by one of these column names, right? I mean, address, we didn't think we needed to define address, right? But some of the other ones, we certainly did put down.
There she is. Hi, Ann's back.
Hi, I'm sorry.
What's that?
I lost my internet. I'm back.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so the question was, what we want to do is, based upon your feedback from, like I said, last month, this has been updated. One of the things that wasn't updated was this section, and it was on an item to do from last month. So this is now what we want to put in the about section. So it's like, there's not a lot, yeah, there's not a lot of discussion because the definitions match the map, right? And so we don't want to get those out of sync. The real, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Might the about section evolve somewhat organically as more, work is being done on each parcel, that things come up that are, need to get put in there?
Well, yeah, the whole thing is going to evolve, right? I mean, we know that parcels come and go, parcels get subdivided. We may change some definitions. I mean, nothing is static. I'm just saying at a snapshot in time, this is where we're at. The question, I really think the question on the table is, we had this debate before, this right now is only available to, I guess, town staff and the commission. And so the question is, do we want to make a version of this or the entire aspect of this available to the public? I mean, we were going to wait until we got to a point that says it's out of beta, right? And we're now at that point in time. So I want to open up the discussion on sharing this with individuals. I mean, I guess technically, in Freedom of Information Act, anybody can ask for it and we would be required to give it to them. That's different than pushing it out there, right? So Kristen?
I have a lot to say tonight. What would be the downside of sharing it? I mean, it's a nice piece of work. It exists. Like, why would we hold it back?
Oh, I guess a whole bunch of questions and why did you do this and why is that there? And I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what would be some of the negatives. It would just be challenges to each one of the line items and data, I guess. Yeah, Tom?
It's a good question. And I think I'm for posting this thing up, with filling in the about stuff that as you presented it. I think this thing's ready for prime time and to be made a link on the conservation website. As here's the inventory that we're maintaining as the Conservation Commission to do our job.
Right, that's why I wrote this, right? It's the index. Questions or recommendations can be submitted to us, or I was going to say Bruce, but I was nice and said Town of Groton Planning Department. Bruce agrees with that. Are you making that as a form of a motion, Tom?
Do we need a motion, or just because you've developed this whole thing on concurrences? You want a motion? I'll give you a motion.
I think given that that the specific action now is not like a work activity, it's now a defined action of the commission. Yes, I would like a motion.
Then I move that we authorize the Groton Open Space Viewer app be added to the town website under the Conservation Commission links.
Second.
Discussion. All right, we'll call it for a vote. Oh, I'm sorry, you had a discussion item, Kristen?
I was just gonna say that we may give certain concerned parties a heads up early in the game, let's say GCA or Avalonia, or some groups who may have high interest in this, and get some feedback right away from the public, and that'd be great to have that feedback.
Well, in order to do that, we would then have to provide access to them as an expanded beta.
No, I'm
test.
saying if we put it out there and just give them a heads up, hey, this is out there, have a look at it, what do you think? We might get some feedback from them that would be
Oh, okay.
beneficial
All right.
for,
Okay, that's-
before
that's-
everybody
yeah.
notices that it's there.
Yeah, I don't think we need a motion to do that. We have a list of related organizations to us out on the website. We can just copy all those guys and say, hey, oh, by the way, take a look at this. I mean, that's fine. I think that's just a courtesy to, affiliated organizations. So I'm fine with that if the motion passes. Other comments? All right, take a vote. All those in favor? All right, that's I guess I'll make it unanimous. That's a unanimous vote. I will take the action to get with the IT department and do two things. I will request the about page be updated. And I will request that we add to the Conservation Commission website this whole section with this introduction and have it as a news item that there's a new news or whatever that thing is on the front page. And also a courtesy, oops, I ran out of, I may take notes here, so excuse me, is a courtesy to the other orgs that this is out there. All right. I guess I can go back to the agenda. Oh, wonderful. Section 7. So I'm sure Kristen wants to see this. I'm sure that was Ann wanted to see this.
And while you were gone, we divvied up areas that we were interested in working on this year.
Oh,
Oh, they're right
When's
here.
it
I get
Larry's new
assigned?
list.
I'm sorry, Ann. I was sitting here typing and listening and I wasn't keeping track. Would you like to be a sponsor of this thing? And I don't know if you heard the action was a sponsor would go back and relate to make sure that the section 7 had specific actions relating to these 2022 objectives.
sure.
So which one of these would you like to?
Well, do you have the list again?
Right here. Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't, see- I don't see anything.
That's me. I'm sorry. That's me. I had it up there looking at it and
You can see it.
I can see it. There we go. There we go. I'm sorry. So this was a list. You can see the names that were put down here. Let's see.
So, yeah, I think Tom and I were actually on the estuary, National Estuary one, but that's fine. I can look for sustainability support, but I don't really understand what that means.
Well, that's the job. We don't understand what it means.
No, but when you put that down, what was,
Oh, for the town has funded a sustainability manager who is being hired. The question is, how do we work with that sustainability manager?
oh, okay. Yeah, you can put, I don't know if that's, yeah, I can check to see what, or if that's even on our list.
I'm not sure it is. I'm trying to remember because we didn't have, when we started that list, we didn't have the funding for it. So I'm trying to remember.
Right. And
Yeah.
I mean, Well, we'll get to the data center, but I definitely have concerns about the data center, so I wouldn't mind having, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's see, where was I? Oh, section 7. That's up. Let me bring that up and do share. Section 7. Okay, so this is, again, the green are things that we completed, so I'm going to erase those. The gray was activity.
Can you make that any bigger, Larry?
Ooh, let me think about that. That's not it. Where the hell's my Zoom? There's a Zoom someplace.
Next to
View.
the printer? Is that a Zoom? You can't,
Magnifying glass? That's a search thing.
That's the
oh,
search.
that's search, okay.
That's not getting any bigger. Oh, that got a little.
Yeah, it
bigger.
is.
All right.
Yeah, whatever you did, do it again.
I made it. It's fit to width, so that's.
Oh,
There we go. How's that?
That's helping.
All right. You do have copies of this out there. Remember, it's available through the website. So, I mean, I'm going to zip through here, guys. So there's, what I did is I took the long and the short and the midterm, and it's all together. And I took out, and the greens, I'll remove those for the next edition. So it's actually shorter than you might think, because we have been working on things and getting rid of them. So I think this next round is to, kind of think about 2022. Certainly go through these where you kind of identified as sponsors, because I think some of these have sponsors listed somewhere in there. But for example, there's, green belt, these are specific actions that are already there. These are the green belt ones. Coastal areas, this doesn't have the NER thing in it. So this might be one to kind of update this, the fact that this was done before that whole NER approval was done. And it might also have to deal with the sustainability manager, because that was one of the jobs I think he has to do. So there's a lot here. I'm trying to think about, we almost need a work session that goes through this. So I think in our February session, which is not too far off, that we spend the time to go through this list and go through the updates that we want to do. Yeah, Tom?
Well, one of the things you got to remember is when we prepared this list almost 2 years ago now, as part of the open space conservation plan, these were identified to each of the paragraphs in the plan. I take a look at this laundry list of stuff we just talked about in regard to, there's a lot of things that are not on here that have evolved and that are Conservation Commission concerns that are above and beyond just the open space conservation plan itself. So how are you, I think from a tracking mechanism, you have the section 7, which actually represents, gets kind of confusing to somebody that just picks your agenda up and says, oh, we're going to talk section 7. Section 7 of what? It's section 7 of the open space conservation plan. But you also are now saying you're using this mechanism as a tracking for a lot of the actions. Now it sounds like you're trying to suck in a lot of these other things that weren't really discussed in the conservation plan. So you're looking at a section 7 plus or something,
yeah, I think in general, the strategic sections of the open space plan do have all the stuff we talked about. It just doesn't have the details. So the actions we agreed to earlier in the meeting was that the sponsors would then look at section 7, which obviously means looking at the open space plan, and fit them in the right spot. If it's not there, if it's there, fine, we can check the box. If it's not there, then I think we need to add it. I don't think there's anything that's way out of whack that isn't generically covered by one of the sections in the open space plan. I think there's a little bit more specificity. So that was the action. That's why I'm suggesting at our next meeting, we could drill down through this and resolve that question or those questions and get everything together. Because I don't want to have multiple lists. I mean, we have one list for stewardship actions and one list for everything else. It's kind of how it's shaping up. I don't want to have a third list.
Well, the only reason I asked the question is because we're essentially in the open space. I'll give you a good example. Is this the last item here, the 30% in 2030 proposed here by GCA? That was not part of the open space plan. And it's a direct correspondence, and it's kind of like out of sync with the open space plan. So do you want me, are you saying if I have a responsibility for that, do you want me to come back and rewrite the words here, that area where we were looking at how do we want to expand in the future, which is a long-term goal?
Now, my suggestion would be the section where we talk about that percentage, because we do talk about the 21% as a state objective, right? Since that time, there's a new federal objective. Since that time, there's a new global. I mean, I think the action could be related to that section, but the action would be to readdress it. Do we want to change that? And as we get the resolution of that, or we would close that, when in fact we made a decision that says, no, we do not want to change it, or yes, we do. And if the action is yes, we do, then yes, I would agree, Tom, that there would be an update to the open space plan. Does that kind of provide the logic?
So when I respond for the areas that I signed up for on the goals for 22, I will review this list and then provide you in my comments here to the individual areas, either a recommendation for a change to the plan or what actions that we're taking as a commission to implement that aspect with this focus.
Correct.
So that's what I'll give you. Just want to make sure I understand my tasking here to get to you by the end of the month.
Yep. Kristen.
Larry, we had an internal spreadsheet that had our goals and objectives, and that was separate from this. Because, like, for example, getting a plastic ordinance changed has nothing to do with this plan here. So, or the industrial composting, following up that.
Composting is in here someplace.
Yeah, and plastic plastic
reduction is in here, and
is in here.
That was my question. If there's something new that's come up that isn't in here, which basically says it's not in our open space plan, then we need to, that's what we said. We need to consider adding it, which means, does that mean we have to then go back and change the open space plan? Iteration, 2022. I mean, we need that discussion. So if it's not there and we want it there, to Tom's point, we then have an obligation, says if that's what we want to do, we should go back and update the open space plan to reflect that change in our perspective or our objectives. If not, we don't do it. I mean, you can say, we've looked at it, we're not going to do it. That's okay too. So I don't see any disjoint with your question there. We're just trying to find out and resolve those two. So I think we're like 80-20. I think at least 80% of the things we talked about under objectives are somewhere in here or could be related to something in here. There might be one or two that isn't. Or maybe it's more than that. Maybe they're all in there. I'm trying to think now. But that I think that's the work scope. The data center one obviously is not in here, for example. That's not in here. I know that because that's brand new. But it's related to how the use of town-owned property, should it be retained as open space or not retained as open space? I mean, so it's not unrelated to our objectives. It just wasn't. It's a specific example, and we went through by my count through the last year, we did 9 assessments, I think it was 9 assessments on town property. 7 of those 9, we said the town could go sell them. 2 of the 9 we disagreed with, something like that. All right. I mean, so that is something that we've done as a course of action. The data center one is just another specific example of that. But I'll since my name's on there, I'll find a place to kind of slot that in. Other questions on what our work is over by the end of the month? End of January. And oh man. All right. End of January is resolve section 7 of the open space plan with the 2022 priorities, I guess. And if you get that to me, I'll do the consolidation and then provide this update and get it into the next agenda publication that goes out. All right, fair enough? Everybody nod their head. Okay, good. All right. Let's see, back to this. Open space stewardship workbooks and action log. Well, I think the action log, I didn't know what to call it, Michelle, but the action log.
Yeah, and I didn't do the update. I need to do that. I will commit to getting that done for the next meeting.
All right, and one of the things, and I think it was to Bray's point earlier, was we got 17 plans. What's the priority of them? And one of the things we talked about is, did we kind of want to lump several of the stewardship plans together around this Birch Creek, Thames River Basin thing? And does that become, the first subset of parcels that we wanted to look at? That was broached last meeting. We didn't really conclude on that. Does anyone want to throw out a prioritization of those stewardship plans? Tom Olson, perhaps.
Well, I agree that we already have a stewardship plan that says Birch Creek on it. That's the plan. And I think between what ECC does with the Thames River Basin updates, their next meeting is on February 2nd. I just got notified of that today. And then you also have the Baker Cove Working Group, which is another portion of ECCD. And they've already teamed with the city of Groton and GOSA and stuff for that. So obviously, and the mayor from the city of Groton is extremely interested in extension of trails and incorporation of all that. So I think from a prioritization, we need to be supporting that to the greatest extent, those activities. So that's as far as, right now, I think we're not in a position to go beyond that. If we have other areas that people should be aware of, the other 16 open space plans, as far as on how we're going to develop the volunteer basis. And I think a lot of that's first the educational component of it, and then recruitment in regard to trying to find people to do it. It's going to take time, and we should have a low expectation in regard to finding those folks today, and it's kind of outside my bailiwick. I think we've put the plan together so that we can turn it over to somebody if we talk to them, we run into folks, and we may want to, kind of tap in to between GCA, Avalonia, and GOSA. They already have a significant network of volunteers, and I don't want to suck away from them. But if we can, I think one of the strategies that we may want to take for our second tier in months like in March, April, or May, to go off and take a look at how do we get them to partner with us. Okay, for example, we have a stewardship plan for Drozdak Drive. well, literally what's across, GOSA in the interim, GOSA has bought the property literally across the street from it. Can we get GOSA to maybe help us out with that? Is just, kind of as an idea here, and then use that type of thing at all the other properties as far as how do we develop that volunteer basis, okay? So I think that's a future action. I think we need to focus right now on the Birch Plain Creek Stewardship Plan is our #1 plan, and then work with the ECD folks and their activities that are being fostered from the city and stuff. Thank you.
All right. I think we did two things. So one is we did a reach out to all the RTM members, and although somewhat disappointed, we did at least get one RTM member per district that said, gee, I'm interested in supporting the execution of a stewardship plan, right? So that's one point. You brought up another point that says we have these other groups of folks, whether it's GOSA, GCA, et cetera, that's another set of folks. So I think then the point is, with Michelle taking the lead on what does it mean, we've got a couple of things to push on, but I think we have to ask them to do something, Michelle. So I think that's what we need. So we have a couple of paths to go after groups. The question is, how do we do that, and what's the ask? And we have the plan, we have avenues. What's the glue that ties us together? So you were going to think on that as we work through the action item, with, I guess, the emphasis being on the Birch Creek plan, #1, and perhaps the Dosrick Drive or something. I mean, something that could be instantly related to that, or perhaps we can go out and ask the RTM members again, here's the ones, which I did the first time, saying here's the plans in your district. Is, do you want to be more proactive in one of those plans? Yeah, Michelle?
One of the things we could do is basically put together an introductory thing to GOSA and Avalonia and GSA, city, whoever, saying, hey, here's the Conservation Commission has done this. We're working on developing a process for getting volunteers, whatever, saying, here's what we're doing. Do you guys have any suggestions for us on how to go about getting this started? And maybe not a letter, maybe have a joint Zoom thing with representatives from those organizations. Basically, we're not trying to steal their people. We're trying to ask for suggestions using their expertise, their experience. It's like, we really want to do something substantial here. Do you have some ideas for us on how we might go about doing that?
So are you suggesting like a workshop of some sort that we invite?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
keep it around? Would you be willing to chair that workshop?
Yep, I can outline some ideas and we can talk about it next month.
All right, and we do have the listings of it. So I do have the RTM candidates. We do have the list of organizations. So at least we know who we would invite. I mean, obviously, one of the ones, by the way, is the Wolfbrook property with GOSA as a joint venture, regardless, with the town. I mean, that was a three-way deal. That's a little bit different than the other ones. Hey, Bruce.
Yes.
Given the fact that we're talking about town property here, from a stewardship plan point of view, the role and the invite and the support and participation of Parks and Rec. I mean, what would you think would be the appropriate staff to be in this workshop, or even take some actions as a result of the workshop?
For stewardships, I would say Parks and Rec, absolutely. Maybe, and someone from planning and development, I would think, unless any of the properties involve public works too, which They may. I think some of them do.
There's a couple that are public, most of them are not, though. Would you take an action to talk to Mr. Barry about supporting that kind of workshop or assigning one of his folks to work with Michelle on that workshop? I think
Sure.
I'd like to get the town involved in this since it is town property. And that would provide some additional support. All right. Let's see. The other thing is I got a Thames River Basin update. And I know that I thought didn't we just have a meeting? Tom, was there just a meeting on that? I'm trying to now remember.
Well, no, there's two things that ECCD does. One is the Baker's Cove. That meeting was in December. And then the Thames River Basin, they meet much more infrequently. Their next meeting is on February 2nd.
Okay.
I'm going to be doing the planning for their next, the summer of 22's with float workshop. That's the basic agenda for it. So I know that we had briefed the Thames River Basin this time last year for their February meeting as far as what we were doing with our stewardship plans and the open space conservation plan.
Okay.
But so we're on their distribution, and I got the notification today that says that we're going to have a meeting. I'm not going to be able to attend, so.
Was that the January 18th one?
No, this is February 2nd.
Thames River
came out
Basin. Oh, yeah, I just got one today about a January.
Philo.
Yeah.
Oh, there's two ones. There's actually, I see the one on the 18th here also.
Yeah, this one is on Connecticut Pollinator Pathway Initiatives.
Yes, that's a separate meeting. Yeah.
Is there someone that might be interested in that? Kristen? You're on mute.
Yeah, what was the timing on that?
Yeah, let me send it to you. Hold on.
Okay, please do.
I mean, it just came in today, so.
Okay.
All right, whoops. All right, so I just forwarded you that. That's well, it's Pollinator Pathway folks, and it's about that initiative. And I guess it was rescheduled to the 18th at 9:30 a.m.
I got one that came in since our meeting has started here at 5:11 that changed the meeting date to the February 2nd, which is what I was quoting.
Oh, okay. I'm wondering all right. So January 18th is now February 2nd.
Yes.
Wait a minute, that's not the pollinator one, that's the other one, right?
No, this is all the same stuff. From
Okay.
rain gardens to riparian buffers, pollinated pathways with a healthy watersheds.
Could you forward that to Kristen? Because
Yes.
okay, just to close the
I
loop.
might, I
don't-
think I think there's already some similar meeting already scheduled that day, or I might already have it. Oh, no, okay, good. Oh, February, wait, January.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we ended that confusion. All right. So Bray, could you give us an update on the National Estuarian Research Reserve status?
It has gone through, I would say 99%. And there's still a last minute couple of issues to complete the process to identify this area as part of the National Estuarian Research Reserves. They're going to make some sort of formal announcement about the whole process coming up sometime this spring, to sort of open the door. And it appears at this point, as it is coming together, it has a lot of administrative things, who's going to be on the team and who's going to head it up and so forth. I think as they go forward, that is still in flux. So I think right now, once we get through the coming into the spring, they're going to have a much better idea of where we are with this whole thing. But at this point, it looks like all the boxes have been checked for the feds to say that it's a go.
Right, that, when you look at the, I was gonna say land, when you look at the area that's contained within that reserve, are there additional protections and restrictions as a result of that classification?
No,
So they don't add, it doesn't like you can't.
that was one of,
I'm
that,
sorry?
that was one of the discussion points, and they took it off the table because they didn't want pushback on focusing on the area from the Connecticut River to roughly the mouth of the Mystic River, particularly in our area, Haley Farm and Bluff Point, as Pine Island as being some of their primary research areas, as well as the Thames River estuary in our area. It didn't impose anything. It is a place to have discussions on should there be some sort of restrictions, and if so, who was the entity that was going to present those restrictions? What was it going to say? Who was going to monitor it, et cetera, et cetera. And so all that is for future discussions.
I mean, where I was going, because I thought originally there was something like that in there, I mean, got taken out.
Right.
If at some point it gets put back in, does that then kind of add to the
Protection of the area?
protection? Yeah, protection area, if you will, because it's not just land, it's also now includes those tidal basins and other places, Tom? Yeah.
Well, you're asking about something that's unlikely to happen, because right now the document's basically been locked down and it's in the final approvals, and it would take somebody significant to change it, and then that'd be a whole rebuttal process. So at this point, the way it's been described, I agree with totally with everything Bray just said, that this thing is in the final signature circuit as opposed to up for any further discussions. Or the decision was not to put anything, that there was sufficient, particularly for the land portions of it, that the state controls were adequate for what to be able to support the goals of the NERV without putting additional constraints. And for those areas that have private that's where the concerns came from, and they basically said, we're not going to try to impose anything above and beyond what you currently have today as far as restrictions.
All right. All right, I'll move along. A SCARA composting status. There was a meeting that SCARA held. I know a couple of you were there. We were there, I think 3 of us. And we got I was going to say the dump, bad choice of words. We got the report of the pilot program for SCARA's composting efforts. It looked pretty good. They did have a lot of technical detail on, aerobic, non-aerobic, amount of air flows, yada, yada, yada. But I think clearly this is going to be a regional one, not located in the town of Groton, but where we could take advantage of it. So I think as that progresses, that SCARA is going to fund it. And I think, that we would be supportive of, I guess, initially the commercial and government use of that composting facility. I don't know. I mean, I know, Kristen, you were there. I mean, any other comments you want to make on that?
I think GCA wanted to do follow-up and kind of, help push it forward. But I think what we really need from SCARA is some kind of sense of a timeline. There's no sense in getting enthusiasm and support and energy towards it if they don't have a site or a permit for 2 more years. So I think it would be really beneficial to understand, like, where are they in the process and how can we help the process? But we just need information from them.
Yeah, well, and plus the economics, because that's what's gonna drive the interest, I think, when they get through and say, hey, yeah, we can reduce the costs, right? Which is what they were claiming. But it needs more development. So I kind of agree with you that I think they made good progress, but we're still a ways from, I guess, specific actions. I think it's gonna be, you're right, another 1 to 2 years before that becomes operational. But you're right.
I was going to say, one of the messages I took away from it was they have a particular area they're looking very strongly at. In order to move forward with that area, they need the appropriate approvals. That was in the works. And the pilot project at Stonington went well to support the concept that composting around our area will work. But as Kristen was saying, we need to have them cement where they're going to do it, when they're going to do it, and so forth. Right now, it's we cheer them on and the progress they've made so far, but there's nothing really pointed at this point that we can jump on and help them out, I think. Not until at least they come out of, which appears to be quiet, negotiations with whatever site they're choosing.
All right. So we'll keep our, I guess, our eyeballs on it and pull the trigger when we need to pull the trigger, or when we can pull the trigger. The next topic I had on here was a data center proposal. Now, online, and maybe Bruce, we can put links to the March 30th. Let me get the right date here. I thought it was March. Yeah, March 30th. The March 30th, there's the video of the meeting, of the town council meeting, and in the agenda handout is the entire data center contract summaries and recommendations, et cetera. So I'm not going to review it today, but I'm going to, Bruce, send this to you. Can you forward plus link to the minutes of March meeting?
What, you're talking about last March?
Yeah, last March. This has been around a while. All right. And I guess it got up on the, it kind of bubbled up a little bit. There has been no formal new proposals or permit applications, et cetera, for this data center, but it did go right after, and Tom, kind of put together some charts on it, but it was after areas of town land that's now, quote, we consider open space, but not protected open space. So that whole getting into what is the, the process for selling town land. I did chat with Bill Groves, who's the chair of the EDC. He's got some concerns about pollution and downstream effects. We had some discussions about what's the real economic benefit to the town. Do we really know what it is? I mean, developers make a lot of claims, right? And I did volunteer outside the commission because I spent 20 years building, managing, and running data centers. And I offered my services to the town to provide some observations on the proposal. But my concern is, I'm not sure there's a business case that this will ever happen. Right? I mean, as a data center provider. So there's several concerns. One's conservation, which is our RIF. The second is economic development, which is the EDC. The third is there a true business benefit to the town, which is more staff work as well as EDC work. So I made an offer, and I'm looking for your agreement. I made a proposal, I would say, to Bill Groves that says we would like to make this a joint effort between the EDC and the Conservation Commission to ensure that this data center proposal and use of land is in the best interest of the town of Groton. I think that's the summary, I guess, of it. And so I'm looking for your support as a commission that says we want to do that. So let me open this up for discussion. Michelle, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I totally agree with your approach, Larry. And based on reading the other stuff, I think an even bigger issue is this group, this data, whoever they are, big data, whatever, they don't have a track record, but the bigger problem is that there's something that says that they can then pawn this off or rent it out to third parties without the town having an agreement on what the third party uses it for. So I think the bigger problem is what they actually plan on doing with the land or the building, whether or not, and whether it's a data center or not. I think it's even worse if they use it for something else that they don't have to tell us about.
Yeah, that gets into, it seemed like they tightened up the agreement a little bit, so that wouldn't happen, but it still looked, well, without putting anything into the public record, which this is, if I was an investor, I would look a little deeper. Let me just leave it at that. All right.
Yeah.
So that was part of my concerns, and I intend to share those concerns with the town manager. But regardless, the question on the table is use of town property that will take, a bunch of trees, but how many, we don't know, because we don't know if they're going to put in a solar farm to support it. We don't know if they're, what they're going to do with the land at this point in time. So other comments out there, Kristen?
Yeah, I like what you said, Larry, and I would support that.
All right, other comments?
I have a question is, of the entire parcel, which is hundreds of acres, how much of that is the town's property?
Tom, you kind of looked at it. There's state, private, and town property involved here.
Yeah, there's about 17 acres off of Flanders Road is the one town property. Abutting that, there's about another 2 acres of state property that's a little triangle that was part of the I-95 corridor. And the rest of it is all privately owned and properly zoned areas that have been on sale for a while and have not sold. It's a very small portion of it, but there is a portion, so it at least gets the town to the table in regard to that we should be being proactive as a commission to being concerned as far as on what the developer is doing. And this is where, from my viewpoint, since I was asked here, is that, should we, I think working with the Economic Development Commission is a good idea for us to be doing it, and that we should potentially be asking questions like, and this is totally hypothetical as far as I've been thinking through it real quickly here, is that we already talked, we set a goal of looking at the green belts. Well, one of the things that could be done here is this guy's, the 2 parcels that he's got on either side of I-95 are essentially a connecting link of those green belts. And should he be tasked as part of his development plan to be able to put some type of tunnel and corridor for animal transit and this type of stuff, as he is in conjunction with him potentially literally connecting his two sites. He's got 6 buildings split 3 and 3. Is he going to want some type of transportation corridor between those buildings? Because the only thing separating is I-95. And so, is part of his development plan. So could we be proactive to say, hey, our green belt for the town would like to see something like this to expand, the continuity for travel for yourselves as well as for animals and humans to be able to work with attaining and having access to these other open space areas that are owned by Groton Open Space and the state at the Candlewood Hill Wildlife Area. So being proactive, I like that idea and would support working with EDC as far as the developers starting to put his plans together, kind of know that we outreach to say, hey, we're proactively coming out to you to say things that we'd like to see if you could potentially incorporate it within your budgetary constraints. Thank you.
All right, other comments?
I would like to see one quick one, Larry. You guys are much more advanced on this project than anything that I've seen. Now you're talking about some sort of quick pencil drawing of where buildings might be and how it relates to I-95. Is that something out there that I can go take a look at?
Yes.
Or is this what you're going to release through Bruce?
No, it's well, first of all, I guess 2 things. Tom put together a couple of charts, but they have a website. The developer has a website which is sketchy, to say that, with very limited information. Tom did a little bit more work on some of the parcels. Tom, could you share those with Bruce, what you did? Oh, you're on mute, Tom.
Yes, I can pass that on to Bruce and for distribution.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so I think from what I heard is without objection that we agree to work with the EDC and I guess the vet and progress this proposal as it goes through its process. Right? So,
Yes.
so recorded. I will reach out to Bill Groves and tell him that the commission is fully behind working together with his commission. And he thought it was a good idea. He felt that the commissions don't work as much as they should together in the town, and this is a good thing in general. We're not at odds. I had a long discussion that environmentalism and financial benefit to the town aren't at odds with each other. They really should complement one another if in fact if things work correctly. I would ask, now I noticed that some of our attendees are still out there from GCA, that one of the things that we would do is reach out to GCA and ask any questions, ask them to submit any questions to us that they would like to see pursued as we go down this process. I asked Bruce about what the status was. There's been no permit applications. There's been no activity since last March, I guess, on anything in this regard. So this may or may not, this may be smoke. I don't know, right? But it seems like not a lot has happened. But sometimes what happens, all of a sudden things pop up and everybody wants to drive things real quick. So we got to be a little careful here. All right. That is all the things I was going to talk about under report of chair, I think I've done. I have report of staff is next on the agenda. So that's Bruce.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I just wanted to mention that there at the last item there, the Circa Resilience Roundup. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
I don't know what that was.
Yeah, that, yeah, we had somebody, I try to remember, I don't have a link to something. I thought somebody from the commission attended that.
I think, is that the email you sent out, Ann, just kind of
Yeah.
forwarding us? Yeah, I actually did attend that webinar the other day. Circa they're calling it a pilot program for resilience projects, or if a community wants to adopt a stormwater authority. We are interested in the former one there, but the issue is there's only $100,000 for the entire state for all communities to grab and to apply for. So the funding is limited. That's why they're calling it a pilot project. But I did have a meeting today with the director and Public Works. We're going to look at maybe submitting some kind of application for improvements to River Road or some other flood-prone roadways that need some studies or assessment and some work pretty quickly here.
It seems the Mystic area has a lot of name recognition, and it's also kind of low-lying area, which might provide some good PR to that effort. But that's just me. All right, thank you.
I have a question for Bruce. Bruce, what is going on with the Mystic Oral School? Where are we in that process? Do you know?
You know, that's a good question. I haven't heard anything about this. I haven't heard anyone talk about it. So I haven't even thought to really ask what's going on with it. So I'm assuming by me not hearing anything at all, there's really not much going on between the town and the developer at this time. So
Is it
really,
still the attorneys for both entities are, I guess, still in discussion? Is that where it is?
yes, yeah, I would say so. And that's probably why it's dragging on a little bit here.
So is that
without any
an
updates.
yeah, Bruce, is that an arbitration or are they just talking?
It wasn't an arbitration the last I heard. It was I think they called it good faith negotiations, but I'm not sure if it got to the level of arbitration yet.
All right, because that would be the next step, I believe, right? If they kind of get to an impasse, then you got to force the issue.
Yeah, if they can't,
Most
great.
people are
Yeah.
saying you violated the contract, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be the next step.
All right. All right, so no news, right? So. All right, any new topics that anyone would like to bring up? Tom?
This is a question for Bruce in regard to, were you privy to anything that's been put forward as far as in the budget process that we need to be worried about that's going into the town manager to be evaluating right now? That came in from the planning departments to support either the Wolfbrook or any other conservation actions? And did they put, again, for the CIP for the annualized $25,000, was that resubmitted?
I'm not sure. Those are good questions. I can get back to you on that, and then maybe we're gonna update next month or sooner.
Yeah, I expect the town manager budget should be coming out of here, towards the end of the month here. I think it's due out like the 26th or something like that of January by the budget timeline. So we'll know by then for sure. So I just,
So for our next
check.
February meeting, we should have that as an item that says what's in there for the town's point, what's in there for the for quote conservation topics.
yeah, the follow-up to that is that if you need to take action to advocate for something in the budget, which we have typically not done all that much or that well a job with in the past, that, as far as to be taking a look at those. I have monitored those because they were in the budget, we were supporting it, but we didn't really take a proactive stance on it. But we may want to in the future because of the way the actions have gone for the last couple of years. Has been cuts in those areas as opposed to being able to support it and things.
Okay, so I can definitely look into the open space acquisition fund to make sure that $25,000 is in there and get back to you on that. And what was the other thing? Just any items that you made?
No, the Wolfbrook was there anything put in for that?
Well, there should be. They committed to it, so it should be there.
I don't know how they're approaching that. One of the things was to take a look at draining the last number I heard was $75,000 in that land acquisition fund. is that part of the budget process this year? Or is they gonna do that by us? They can also be done separately, but I didn't know if that was gonna be part of the budget process.
I will check out both of those and get back to you probably this week if I get an answer.
All
I'll
right,
send it out to everyone.
all right, other new topics? All right, I would leave you with one, but we do have an open slot in the, on the commission. If you have any suggestions or recommendations, please let me know, forward me a note. And I'd like to, pursue that. Karen has volunteered that she'd be willing to support any of us on specific projects, et cetera, even though, she's not a commission member per se. So I thank her for that offer. You can reach out to her. We have your number. All right. All right, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. I was trying to wait for somebody else to do it.
I did it.
Okay, Kristen did
All
it.
right,
and
take
Michelle
Kristen.
seconded it. All right, all in favor? All right,
Aye.
unanimous. Very good, folks. Welcome to 2022. And we'll see you next month. We were
See
gonna
you
do,
next month.
but we never can quite get there. We always have a new variant popping up.
Yeah, and on that, I know before everyone leaves, I know that I sent the email, or I think everyone received the email about in-person meetings in February. That's where the goal was to do it, but then we just got a meeting that all meetings are now virtual again, even town council. So, but it's only till the end of this month, so I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
One of these
been-
days.
same old.
All right,
I'll let everyone know. Have a good night, everyone.
all right.
Thanks. Bye,
Good night.
everybody.
Night.
Nice to see everyone again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.